before I hand it off. But I want to start with shining a light on what Jesus says here, that my sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. Now, in the moment when he said that, he was talking about himself, a discrete person, human being, Jewish person, Jewish rabbi, and he was calling for people to follow him. He was calling for people to believe in him. And when he says, my sheep know my voice, he had one specific voice. Just like the sheep, when they follow a shepherd, they know the actual sound of that shepherd's voice. And we can all relate to that. Growing up, we knew the sound of our mother's voice, the sound of our father's voice. I just said mother, so I'll real quick say Happy Mother's Day, by the way. We don't make a huge deal about that in this church, so that leaves it open for you to make a huge deal about it in your household, however you see fit. But Happy Mother's Day. But we grow up recognizing, in fact, we know the sound of our mother's voice even in the womb, right? We don't know the concept of mother yet, but we know that sound. And then we come to learn the sound of our father's voice or the sound of our siblings' voices. And we can close our eyes and we can hear them and we can know who it is. They call on the phone and they only have to say one word and we know who that is. And Jesus is calling us to know his voice that intimately. But there's a problem. At the time when Jesus said this, he had that singular voice. His disciples could hear him say one word and know who he was. After the resurrection, Mary was right there. Mary Magdalene was right there, and she didn't recognize him until she heard him say Mary. She knew her master's voice. She knew her shepherd's voice. But we don't have that person of Jesus with us now, do we? We don't have Jesus in bodily form with us. Or maybe we do, because we are the body of Christ. We have Jesus in bodily form, and it is all of us. So what do we do with the voice now? I grew up being taught, being guided, and being pressured even to know the voice of God, to learn the will of God for my life. And the more time you spend in prayer and in devotions and in Bible reading and in church, the better you learn to recognize the voice of God. And that's not wrong. To me, it's just partial. Because if we are the body of Christ, the voice of Christ is our voices. And I can't learn that by sitting in devotion, sitting in quiet. I should do those things. But I'm not going to learn the voice of Jesus by sitting in a room by myself. I'm going to learn the voice of Jesus by listening when I am with his sheep. And I am one of his sheep, and you are his sheep. And we don't know how far that might extend. In fact, I don't think there's anyone out there we could encounter that is not Jesus' sheep in one way or another. But do we hear his voice when they speak? Or are we waiting for something else, something we were told would sound like the voice of Christ? So in the interest of hearing those voices, I'll take that upon myself. I want to hear more of those voices, and I want you to hear more of those voices. The problem is my voice is a little too predominant in this space, and I'll be the first to admit that. I want more voices because we need them. We need to know what the voice of Christ sounds like, and so we need to hear all of the voices of the body of Christ. So I want to welcome Heather to come forward, because one of those voices, of course, is a voice, that means now. Heather is, of course, one of those voices that I'm talking about. And Heather has taken the time to, feel free, you're on. Do you need an escort? I can escort you. Heather has taken the time and has grown in her faith over this past, well, all her life, but especially over this past year and a half that she's been here with us, and has really meditated on the idea of Jesus as the shepherd and presented me with this reflection, and I thought it was very appropriate to share the Sunday when we read about Jesus as a shepherd, about hearing his voice. So Heather wants to present a reflection she calls the power of one.
Okay. Thank you. So, sorry guys. In discussing my feelings, sharing this reflection with my friend Rick Jordan, who is thankfully here today, and I'm so glad to have him here. So thank you, Rick and Carla. Rick told me it was okay to break the ice by confessing your nervousness and to blow your cover right at the start. So this is me blowing my own cover. So thank you for bearing with me. Rick also said something to me that was very encouraging. He said, sharing your heart is an act of love, and you excel at acts of love. So I thank Rick for giving me the courage I need to stand up here in front of everybody today. Rick is a great example of what this reflection today is all about, the power of one. We often hear of Jesus being referred to as a shepherd. When I think of the Lord as a shepherd, I think of a shepherd who knows each one of his sheep intimately, a shepherd who calls them each by their name, a shepherd who understands each one's unique needs, a shepherd who provides for the sheep and protects them, a shepherd who cares for and comforts each one. Some of the sheep may require more attention and some less, but none of them are any more or less important to the shepherd. Jesus tells a parable about a shepherd, but there's one problem. One of the sheep has gone missing. So the good shepherd leaves the 99 to search for the one that is lost. That shepherd must have thought that one sheep was pretty important to leave the other 99. I have been guilty of minimization, saying things like, I'm just one vote, or I'm just one person. But I feel like that does not quite do any of us enough justice. When our shepherd looks at us, our shepherd doesn't see just one. Instead, our shepherd sees one. What do we know about the number one? We know that one is the smallest positive integer, which makes it fundamental. We also know that it often represents unity. In fact, it is used to symbolize the unity between God the Father and Jesus the Son. We know that we are all members of one body under Christ, who made one sacrifice to atone for the sins of all, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. Though small, the number one, as we can see, has some remarkable implications. One can also represent a moment in time. For instance, when we say, hey, do you remember that one time when? The moment your life changed for the better or for the worse? A moment of great joy or profound sadness? A moment of great success or epic failure? The moment you made a new friend or the moment you lost one? The moment your heart shattered or the moment that someone came along to help you pick the pieces up off the ground? No one tells you how hard it can be to rebuild your life after someone has destroyed it, to discover your identity once the world has told you to be someone else, to find your voice once it has been lost, to love again once your heart has been broken. Life is messy, it's complex, life is filled with extreme highs and extreme lows and everything in between. Everyone has their own battles, their own demons that they're fighting, and there's no guidebook for life. No two roads look the same. They have different twists and turns, bumps in the road, and those darn potholes. We all know how that goes. 1 minute you're getting along just fine, and then you hit that pothole and your tire blows out, possibly ruining your whole day. Most of you don't know this. Well, maybe you do by now, but I'm a big fan of the Conjuring movies, and there's a scene at the end of the second movie that was very powerful to me. After the girl, Janet, has been saved by the Warrens, she says to them, I'm so lucky. You said one person could change everything, but I've got two. Let's think about that statement for a minute. One person can change everything. Let that really sink in. If you've ever seen the movies, you would know that in the movie, Ed and Lorraine Warren literally saved the girl's life. But I think there's more to it than that. The Warrens didn't just save her life. They believed in her. They listened. Like a good shepherd, they were there and they did life with her. Through the ups and the downs, they showed her they cared and they took a chance. Outside of literally saving her life, those other things may not seem extraordinary, but I bet to Janet they were. But let's think a little closer to home. I would like to share a story about a girl. A girl who, like the one sheep, was lost, who was broken, who was aimless. She never felt like she quite fit in anywhere. She was searching for a place to belong. She was a single mother hoping to raise her son in a loving community, and one day she posted on Facebook that she was looking for a church that was progressive and not too political. A lot of you know where this is going. Lucky for her, a friend from college replied to her status recommending that to her a church that their family had recently started attending. She watched a few sermons online, and then one day she decided to visit the church in person. The people were very warm and welcoming, but there was one deterrent which made her hesitant to commit, which was the distance. It was almost a 30-minute drive one way. She thought, well, maybe I can find something closer to home, but one person took the time to get to know her better and encouraged her to get out of her shell and give the church a try. She took these words to heart. She agreed to stay for one coffee hour, and now she's been there for over a year, about a year and a half now. As a result, she gained one person who listened without judgment, who showed her they cared, who believed in her more than she ever believed in herself, who encouraged her to grow and showed her that it was safe to open her heart up to others, and that is the story of how one became many. Now she has many friends. She's built many meaningful relationships and made many unforgettable memories. One Facebook post, one reply from a friend, one person to encourage her to get out of her shell, and one chance that she took to make her the girl you see today who's standing in front of you. That is the power of one. This reminds me of a concept that I learned about in the first grade called the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect is based on the idea that small changes in a complex system can produce large-scale, unpredictable outcomes. The butterfly effect is based on the notion that something as seemingly insignificant as the flapping of a butterfly's wings can impact the formation and trajectory of a tornado. It only takes one hug, one smile, one listening ear, one text to tell someone that you're thinking of them, one phone call to a loved one at the end of a bad day, one kind gesture, one act of service, one thoughtful surprise, one compliment, one person to build someone up, to help them find their voice, to help them rebuild their life, to help them find themselves again, to help them mend their broken heart. And just as it only takes one to build someone up, it only takes one lie, one rumor, one insult, one betrayal, one rejection, one microaggression, one act of manipulation or violence, one person to tear someone down. If something as seemingly insignificant as a butterfly flapping its wings can have a large-scale, unpredictable impact on the larger system, just imagine for a moment the impact that our words, our actions can have on one person, and even on a larger societal scale, even worldwide. You see, I believe Jesus, too, recognized the power of one. Throughout his ministry, Jesus was very intentional with his words and his actions. He understood the impact that they would have for generations to come. He recognized and demonstrated the power of one kind gesture to give hope to the hopeless, one act of service as he washed the feet of his disciples, and one loving sacrifice as he laid down his life for us. Alternatively, Jesus experienced the power of one betrayal by Judas as he was handed over to the authorities for the price of 30 pieces of silver, the power of one rejection as he was denied by Peter, the power of one rumor as he was dismissed as a blasphemer, the power of one insult as he was mocked and humiliated, the power of one act of violence as he was beaten and tortured in the final moments of his life. So this is the opportunity that I see before us, what I feel Jesus would call for us to do, to evaluate our own words and actions, to consider the impact that they may have in building people up or tearing them down, to consider the power of one. Not everyone gets many people or even two, but you can be one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. If you remember Father Jim's guest sermon last Sunday, and if you're listening just now, you know you have homework, right? You remember him talking about giving you homework. Jim gave you homework. Heather's given you homework. And maybe I'll start doing that. Maybe that'll be part of my pattern too. The homework I'm hearing right now, though, is to consider your power, like she just said. That it is a power to kill and a power to heal. Every day. And to be more specific, I'm going to point out that preaching is a process. Preaching there's so much learning, there's so much preparation, there's so much practice that goes into becoming a lay licensed preacher, which is a path that you can follow here in the Episcopal Church. And there's so much value to that. But if we put that bar there and say, well, that's the bar you have to jump in order to come up here and speak,